I think you have to advocate for your client. If your client's rights are being trampled on in some cases, and I know that sounds hyperbolic, but that's what was happening. There was nothing else to do but speak out about it.
Y'all, you can't believe how bad it actually is in some instances. Like, truly cannot believe it unless you see it. All right, welcome to the JudgeMental podcast. Today we are going to celebrate our first podcast drop today. We're getting amazing feedback. We also have a message for the attorneys. We've got a message for the public. We got a call to action for y'all. We're also going to talk about the issues that we experienced in court. And most importantly, we're going to address some of the questions that you've submitted to my Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. Ask us questions, ask us questions, ask us questions. Hugh, how you feeling today?
Awesome. I think
Yeah.
a little bit tired.
Yeah.
The late night of work to get stuff over the finish line. I think it'll be easier next time. We're running into some platform gatekeeping because we submitted before we got verified on there, and yeah, all the growing pains. So that's
Yes, I mean,
fun.
having a podcast was literally a dream of mine. This is so fun. I know it's a heavy topic, but this is really fun, and I do think we're going to make a huge difference.
Good. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't feel that we were.
And I kind of want to start with a message to attorneys, and I want to talk about I've got nothing but positive feedback from lawyers, and I want attorneys to realize, because I do know, and we've talked about this before, that there is this fear in speaking out against them.
Against
Because
whom?
against the judges, because they'll retaliate against you. But I want you to think about it like this. And I am guilty of not fighting the system and bucking the system as much as I should have while I was practicing. I mean, 100%, a lot of guilt. That being said, I think when clients come to you, you have to be an advocate for your client. The pendulum is swinging, and clients don't want to hire lawyers that are scared of judges. What do you think?
I agree. I think that's feedback I got for a long time,
Mhm.
was that I would fight the judge back and I would be told thank you afterwards because, if my client was just getting run over. I remember how uncomfortable it was early in my career where I just thought, is it my place to say something here? I think
Mhm.
that was completely inappropriate, but I wouldn't speak out, and I was hard to sleep. I would just be so upset about it. And when I finally just started pushing back a little bit, when I would see something incorrect, I never, ever received, I don't believe a single time where a client said, "Oh, maybe we should have calmed down or maybe we shouldn't have done that." It
100.
and I will say to the attorneys out there that are afraid of doing it, could it affect other cases you have in front of that judge? Absolutely. I experienced it. But my point of view was always that I was an advocate for that client, that case, in that courtroom. And I could not be thinking about my business. I could not be thinking about the other cases. Now, I was fortunate enough to be part of a team, and if I spoke out or did something that would put me at odds with the judge, I had other attorneys that could handle other matters that were in front of that same judge. So that I got to think about that as
So
well.
you had the
But
opportunity really kind of think about it like for a cooling off period, which I didn't have as
yeah,
a solo practitioner.
yeah. No, I agree. But I think you have to advocate for your client. If your client's rights are not being, or they're being trampled on in some cases, and I know that sounds hyperbolic, but that's what was happening. There was nothing else to do but speak out about it.
Y'all, you can't believe how bad it actually is in some instances. Like, truly cannot believe it unless you see it, which I think is to segue to the point of why we're doing Judgy. Because I will tell you, like, even I left about 2 years ago, and obviously super supportive family, super supportive friends, all of a great network. But I was speaking to my mother after I posted the baby case where the judge, Lauren Ogden, without due process, made the dad, who'd been the sole provider for this baby, hand the baby over in open court without a hearing. And the Court of Appeals said this was a gross miscarriage of justice. Like, I remember my mom called me and was like, holy shit. Like, that actually
Oh yeah.
happens? And I was like, I've been telling you for 2 years how bad it is. And she's like, we believe you, but it's just different until you see it with your own eyes.
It's heartbreaking when you see it. And I still am one of the most jaded people. I think people from outside of my legal world are a little bit afraid of how jaded I am and how sort of numb I am to certain things, I was shocked at how shaken I was a couple of times where I would see a judge get angry and just take someone's child away right then and there and tell the other side, you're going to go pick the child up right now. They're not going to live with you anymore. And just like do these things without thinking about what the real world consequences for the parties or for the kid
Yeah, or the
were.
kid. Like, the kid.
I'm talking about a 2-year-old. One time I saw it happen. It immediately afterwards, and I tried to negotiate for some time so there could be a conversation about, oh, you're not going to live with us anymore, even though the child had lived with my clients from the time she was born. I guess she came home from the hospital to my clients. And the judge just decided to change things. He was upset, wanted to move things forward, wanted to finalize the case, and said, oh, the biological mom had finally done everything that she needed to do. So the child just going to go home right after this hearing. The child was living out of town. My clients had driven in from out of town. So
Had the child
mother to
ever
go
had an overnight?
straight. I don't know if we had started overnights. There may have been a
But
few
minimal.
overnights. Oh, it was minimal. The regular visitation only started a couple months before because it had been years with nothing. So this was like almost an unknown person. This
Yeah.
is somebody that the child was still getting to know, that then all of a sudden you're going to live with this person immediately with no visitation to the person that raised the child because they're not a party. So I can't order a visitation. Just you're cut off. Thanks for, except for there was never any thank you to the people that had raised the child. Just, okay, we're done now. Child's going back right now. No transition period, not even time for a conversation about it.
And we're not psychologists, obviously. I mean, we're human beings and we have Google. And there's no way, in my opinion, that can't have caused significant trauma, attachment issues for that child that child will suffer with for the rest of that child's life. Like, I'm not even being dramatic. Like, that child has been set up by this judge to be more likely to suffer from substance abuse, eating disorders, abusive relationships, all of those things. I mean, I know that probably upsets you because you know these people, but that's the reality in my
Oh,
opinion.
no. Listen, they know and have done their research. They were very intelligent clients, and it made it much harder because they knew the damage that it was going to do. They understood all of those things to the extent you can,
Yeah.
but they knew. And to this day, that's still the custodial situation of that case. And they were denied being a party. Now, that was reversed by the Court of Appeals in that case. And now they are a party, but they're making up for years and maybe fighting for a child that doesn't remember a whole lot about living with them and that they were
Or learn to
basically
disassociate at an
monitored.
early age. It was just like, okay, there is no stability for me. Like, I don't have a safe place because someone wearing a black robe doesn't understand basic dignity, humanity, or respect.
I would really like to have conversations with a psychologist here on the podcast to talk about, what types of issues that can cause for children when that is done, because it happens so often. And when that happened, I couldn't believe that was a regular part of what was going on. But because I fought in that case and I filed appeals and I filed writs, I had people start reaching out to me, other attorneys saying, I've got this nasty case. I've never dealt with anything like this. Maybe you could help, or maybe you could help these people. And I started talking to people almost on a weekly basis that something like that had happened. And that was just in one county. And I realized that people from other counties started reaching out to me. Then I started hearing from people in other states that were reaching out to me about similar issues that they had had. And it was just, and I don't know how they had found out, about my case. I know that my clients had been pretty activist in working, trying to change legislation to have rights for people that were either foster parents or not foster parent third-party caregivers and things like that. But I was just amazed to find out that this was happening all over the place, probably all over the country. I know that it was happening all over the state.
100%. And that goes back, we talked about this on a previous podcast. I want to touch on it a little bit because I'm in the same boat. I get so many questions like, how did you not know? How did you not know? How did you not know? And I did know it was bad, but I didn't know it was this bad because for the most part, most of my practice was resolved in mediation. And it certainly wasn't on the docket that you're talking about, this dependency, neglect, and abuse.
Sure.
And, in hindsight, I realized if they were doing this shit to my clients that were paying me great money, I mean,
Imagine what they're doing to people that don't have attorneys representing them.
every day.
Yeah. And just for those listening, in these cases, the parents whose children are removed from have a right to counsel. The child has a right to counsel. So they're provided with attorneys. The third-party caregivers who the children
What would
are
be like
placed with.
yeah, but what would be an example of like third party when you say that? You mean like foster parents, grandparents,
Well,
aunts,
so
uncles?
foster parents don't get custody.
Mhm.
Foster parents have the child, but the custody still remains with the cabinet. The cabinet has ultimate control. With third-party caretakers, either family members, fictive kin, someone like that, they actually have custody of the child. And
On a temporary
on
basis.
a temporary basis, so it can be snatched away from them at a moment's notice, which is often exactly what happens, and they have no right to counsel whatsoever. So I learned about this because it was happening to clients with me fighting tooth and nail representing them. And I just couldn't imagine until people started reaching out to me what was happening to people that didn't have attorneys.
And you were a machine. I mean, your firm, y'all were in 6 states, right?
5,
Five,
6
my bad.
offices, yeah.
I mean, this was a major machine too. This wasn't even like a solo practitioner
No,
scenario.
we had a lot of attorneys, and we all experienced, similar things. Actually, some of my partners that I worked with were in states where they were appalled by that. And truth be told, they hadn't seen that types of thing happen. But also, as you said, most of our work, especially attorneys at mid-sized firms or even small attorneys that have been in practice for a long time, they don't do a lot of dependency, neglect, and abuse cases.
Like literally, like I said before, maybe
Yeah.
10, 15 cases.
A lot of times you're dealing with people that can't afford a private attorney, or I did some early on and actually enjoyed them because of what was at stake, and that you got to be in court an awful lot. So earlier in my career, I did it. Unfortunately, I ended up with clients most of the time who just wouldn't clean up and they wouldn't follow the orders. And it was just a foregone conclusion that permanent custody was going to be granted to someone else eventually because I'm dealing with someone with substance abuse issues and they won't take advantage of the help. And, I was getting them every chance possible, but it kind of got me a little disillusioned with the process until I had clients who hired me on circuit court things like adoptions. I did a lot of adoption practice, and I did a lot of complex, messy, contested adoptions, multi-state adoptions, things like that. And they started reaching out to me, and there would be a dependency, neglect, and abuse component because there would have to be a termination from the natural parent before the adoption could be done. And I started getting involved in those cases for people that could afford my services, and started seeing just how irregular the
How
proceedings
massive
were.
the problem was.
I mean,
yeah.
like absolutely shocking.
And so you said like 47 legal words in a matter of
Yeah.
32 words?
I tend to do that. Yeah.
But so we talked about temporary custody, permanent custody, then circuit court actions, and we're really not giving legal advice, but there was a Court of Appeals opinion that came down, I think last year. But on this dependency, neglect, and abuse docket, which is essentially a district court docket, permanent custody doesn't really mean permanent in the way listeners
Sure.
are. So people will think they have
Correct.
this piece of paper like, oh, yay, I got permanent custody. And then you get a lawyer, you go file a circuit action, and that permanent custody means little to nada.
Well, and this is very limited in scope to Kentucky as well.
Yeah.
So, and that is a term that you don't even hear used much in Kentucky. You use it usually just hear it in dependency cases. And again, I'm not getting into too much legal analysis, certainly not legal advice, but yeah, permanent custody in general is, until a child becomes an adult, is something that is always fluid, and there's very little you can do to, there are circumstances where you can imagine that a parent could never regain custodial rights, but it's very rare. I mean, it's
Very
always
rare.
something that can change.
One of the biggest annoyances I think people have with lawyers is the answer to any question anyone asks ever is, it depends.
Yeah, it's definitely true.
And it does. It depends. And I think this is what's so important. Well, one, the laws are written terribly. The legislature needs to do some work to clean up some of this mess. And I got a couple comments like, well, the public doesn't care about what judges do. We all know that the public doesn't care. They're going to vote for the blondest of the blonde on the street corner with the yard sign. You know what I'm saying?
Or the family name they recognize.
Yes. But I think I really do, and I know I'm going to say this is the second time I've used this verbiage. The pendulum has swung the other way. Legislatures, people, the public, if you care about this issue, you need to follow, share, like this podcast. Also, message your local legislature. There are massive movements in Arizona and Idaho right now where they're doing task force to analyze what's happening in family court. and it's making global news.
I cannot wait to see, because I mean, it's sort of the question I have in my mind. People are certainly reaching out to us in numbers that I did not expect, even being very optimistic when we started this. But I'm really curious to find out in the next election cycle whether reality and conduct plays a role, or if it's just simply who shows up at more community events and who has more yard signs.
Here's what I think we could do. I really do, and it would require the local bar to get unified. But so we've got the family bar, right? 10 judges. We get 100 attorneys to put their name in a hat. We draw them all, and we'll draw 10 for Division 1. They all put their name in for Division 1, 10 for Division 2. So then you'll have 11 people running. It will be a absolute shit show. Some incumbents will get kicked out, and they will realize there are more of us than there are y'all. I've proposed this before. It would work.
You telling me you can find 10 people you think would be good
No.
for the bench for each division?
I can find 100 people that would be better for the bench than the 10 we got now.
Okay.
And I said it, and I'll say it again.
It's a different statement. My thing, I always thought that, it's one place I can point out errors, I can point out inconsistencies. It's very different in clearly recognizing there's a problem. And then there's another thing about going in and doing it better. And I think that by the time you get to the point where you understand what the problem is as an attorney, you're not going to go and be a judge. Or, it's the same thing I thought with mediation. I've always been impressed with the attorneys that I practiced against who could also be good mediators, because switching between advocacy mode that I spent 20 years developing, switching to a neutral position, I couldn't do it. I don't believe that while I was doing the litigation, I could do that. I think I would have to, it would be a big shift. Now, I guess if you're as a judge, you're not litigating at the same time. So I guess you can make that switch, but I think it would be quite the process. I think I would need some definite time off after the litigation part of my career before I jumped into that.
Well, I don't disagree. And that goes to show we got a lot of retired judges that are out there mediating. And I think that's a real problem. Also, one of the real problems, you say 100 attorneys. Now, I'm saying attorneys that practice family law. Would they be better than the ones we have? And I do think they would. And here's why. Let's look at the current bench that we have now. How many of the current 10 judges on the bench have ever represented a client in their life?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
If you're a prosecutor, you ain't ever had a client. Hi, Christine Ward. What you been doing? She's never had a client. Or if she did, it was extraordinarily limited. I mean, how many people have you represented? Thousands?
Oh, well over.
Oh, yeah. I mean, my public defender is probably 10,000. I mean, I can't even, I practiced in 50 counties, maybe more. But until you actually, how can you get up on the bench, sit there and make decisions about people's lives, and you have no idea of what it's like to actually be able to tell a client, hey, this is what the law is. Hey, this is my advice. Have you ever thought about it like that?
Yeah, I have, but only to the extent that a judge is frustrated with me because my client wants to go forward on something that,
Right.
But I think that's different. I mean, I those times I get frustrated because I think, you really have never been in my shoes and you're not understanding that.
Give
I
me
can't
more facts.
tell my client. So anyway, let's say we've all had clients that they have something they want to fight over. It's not frivolous, or we wouldn't be bringing it before the court, but it isn't worth the money that they are going to pay to fight over it. It's going to take up court time from things that really are much more important, but it's just a matter of principle. So that happens a lot. It's frustrating. It certainly is frustrating to the attorneys. It's very frustrating to the courts. But when a judge would get frustrated with me because my client insists on going forward with something, and I could tell that they've never had to have the client control part of their, in their career, and understand how that works, and understand that we don't get to tell our clients what to do. We advise them. And if they choose to go forward with something, we have to advise them as whether that's wise or best use of their time or money. But as long as it's not frivolous, our job is to go in and hear that. That's where it really frustrated me, that when someone has never represented clients and doesn't understand them, they're getting very they're getting upset with me and acting like I'm wasting their time.
Mhm.
Um, Otherwise, though, that aspect of it didn't bother me all that much.
I think it's nuts.
Yeah, I don't know. I in my career, I didn't know any judge that I practiced in front of personally very well. There are some that are on the bench now that I knew socially before, but I didn't know them very well. So when interpreting how a judge was in the courtroom or how they were in any given situation, I made sure I didn't make assumptions about whether that judge had ever been through something or could empathize, because there's no way in the world I could sit there on the bench and empathize with every situation that came in. Like,
Yeah.
number one, as a male, there's an entire category of things that I can't empathize with when it comes to parenthood, motherhood, those kinds of things. There are tons of life experience that I have not had to suffer through. I've been very blessed and fortunate in my life. So I tried not to think about whether or not this judge even understands what that's like, because you never know. You don't know what people have been through. So I didn't think about it that way when I was before the court. I did think about the client control. And have you ever had one of these arguments with a client? Because you would know that I can't control this.
Well, also, they would know that too, you would never want to put an attorney in a situation where they had to sit there and argue with you and then go outside and get screamed at by their client. You just wouldn't, that's not conducive for resolving cases. That's not conducive for families first. That's not conducive for
Uh,
best interest of the child. It's conducive for you put on a black robe, you think that you're God's gift to man, and you have judgeitis. I mean, I am cranky today. I'm not going to lie because of some of the things. Okay, listen, y'all know I'm on social media. I started this on TikTok. Hugh literally will not even accept my LinkedIn friend request. Okay, that is his involvement in social media.
yeah, it's certainly not intentional. I did accept the Facebook request to control the judgy property
I
on the
saw
day that
that.
it was going to expire.
No, I
So
did
I'm
see that.
catching up. No, I won't say I hate social media. I hate being involved. I don't know.
It-
Personal involvement in my personal life, it's not for me. As a business thing,
yeah.
yeah, perfectly fine.
Well, that's what makes us like a good duo. But the reason I get so frustrated is because, like, I'll be like, oh my goodness, like I saw something positive, and then this morning I'll have 47 messages that's like, you're not going to believe this, you're not going to believe this.
Yeah.
Or there was actually a terrible case out of, I can't even think of where it's out of, but Elizabeth Weinstein, she was a major in the movement talking about the problems in family court, and she passed away due to suspicious circumstances at 53, and there's actually an epidemic of mothers committing suicide, which you may not know. You haven't been in the world long enough to know that's going on. But it is so frustrating to think that these people that have all of this control don't even have the basic common sense to understand that exacerbating any situation doesn't make it better.
Yeah, there was a judge I practiced in front of probably 15, 16 years ago, and he would call me up to the bench at the end of a hearing sometimes and acting like he was angry. Mr. Barrow, I need to see you at the bench right now. And I
Mhm.
would get up there and he would ask me about something completely unrelated to the case and just be joking around and be like, oh, your client's going to think you're in trouble. And like, it, to an extent, it was just, I would just be like, ah, ha, 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 that's funny. I appreciate a prank as well as anyone else. But you've just now made my client think
Right.
that I've done something wrong. You're undermining me, but you're undermining the client's understanding and faith in the court system, because if just assuming the hearing that we just walked out of was perfunctory or it was just executed perfectly, it wasn't,
Yeah.
that we walked through and did everything that I said was correct, and then you're going to call me up there in an angry way just to sort of mess with me because you're ribbing me a little bit. And to a certain extent, like, that's just kind of what colleagues do to each other,
Is
to be funny. But outside of the courtroom,
right.
like, this same person played a hilarious prank that I won't say at a friend's wedding, and I just thought it was the guy was hilarious personally, but doing it in court, it
Right.
caused problems with my clients, and it's just like these people, the attorneys can walk away from it and leave the courtroom, and you know it's one of those things that everyone always finds funny or strange, that attorneys could fight
Mhm.
Like, they hate each other in court and just fight so hard and then
Go get a drink.
just immediately walk out of court and be like, "Hey, good job in there. You wanna
Mhm.
go grab a beer or whatever, and we can talk about maybe, the next, things that we can do to move this forward or whatever," and they can just put it aside. Same thing with judges. Judges and attorneys that know each other, they do the same thing. But there's just
A time and a
there's a
place.
time and a place.
Well
The clients, once anything happens in a courtroom where they don't think the process is working correctly the way that it should, it affects everything else in the case.
well, imagine if you're at the doctor and you're just talking to, like, a nurse practitioner, you're talking to the doctor, and then you got another doctor that opens the door and is like, "I need to see you right this second." I mean, you would be in the doctor's office like, "Is something wrong with me?"
And they're like, "Oh, you have a $3.99 bill that's outstanding. Can you maybe pay that?"
Yeah, or
And you're just
maybe
like,
it's
"Why
just
did you
like
call me that way?"
yeah,
Yeah.
or it's like maybe
Well,
the head doctor was just like, "Ha, ha, ha, I just wanted to play a trick on you while
mhm.
you were sitting there caring for a patient." It's like, you're a jackass. Like, there's just
See, I appreciate a good jackass. I'm
oh,
definitely
I am a
not immune to
jackass.
being a jackass, but it would just cause so many problems, and it were just problems the attorneys have to figure out.
One, the stress on attorneys. I mean, and that's the other message to attorneys too. Like, I am, and some of my followers will get upset on this, but generally speaking, I'm on attorney sides. There's
Oh, me too.
obviously nefarious attorneys. And I'd say, like we talked about before, I'd say probably 20% of us got some things that, maybe some problems or not problems. We all got problems, but maybe lean on the side of like not being on the up and up, just like probably law enforcement or any sort of government agency, right?
Yeah, I would have no idea the percentage, but certainly every profession has,
Yeah, I'm making it
and,
up.
and I think the higher the stress level in the profession,
Mhm.
the probably the more prevalent it is. Again, that's an uneducated guess, but from what I've seen,
Yeah, but, like, lawyers are so like, we talk there's a massive epidemic of Kentucky attorneys committing suicide,
yeah.
and the stress component of representing clients. I mean, seriously, there were times during my career that were very dark, especially towards the end, and I'm sure, you've talked about yours as well, like, so attorneys, you shouldn't be spoken to like that. Do you know what I mean? There's never a scenario in which you should be spoken to like that. There's never a scenario in which you shouldn't be respected when you're doing your job adequately. Period. End of story. DM me, send me info. Time's up. Y'all are all like, I got 20, 30 of y'all doing it right now. I'd like to get it up to 100.
Well, and I also think it's important to remind people that it's all confidential.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
And even if it's just, yeah, I don't want to tell you what happened. I don't want to get involved. I want to send you the case number that maybe you guys just want to look at. And you'll see something that you might want to talk about. Fine with that, but
Best way to
always
do it
very
too
confidential.
is emotion hour. Send me somebody else's case. Y'all are doing that anyway. Also, I
Yeah.
have a little algorithm for how I decide to look up cases that's random before looking at the attorney's name. So I very well could draw your case and you didn't even send it to me. And that's a message too for the judges out there.
That's happened
Like,
a couple times.
oh
We've
yeah.
talked about cases. The attorneys have said, "Who have you been talking?"
Oh
They've
yeah.
asked, "Who did you talk to about the case?" Nope, we found it. Or somebody completely unrelated to the case said, "Hey, you
Sent
might want
it.
to check this out. You will never believe what happened at Motion Hour," or something like that. Yep.
And also, huge shout out to all the pro se followers. I got a lot of court watchers in Louisville Family Court right now that are actually tipping me off to things that are happening on Zoom.
It's a conversation that I think clients need to know the attorneys are having, that they
Yes.
actually give a shit, and this is not just taking their money, billing the hour, and then just being part of a system that is doing these
Yeah,
things.
most of us care
Yeah, most of us care a lot, and most of us care so much.
that it physically causes us
It causes
ailments.
problems. It causes people to end their careers. It causes, unfortunately, people to end their lives.
Mhm.
And you talked about the attorneys committing suicide. I think we are now talking about it more. I don't, from my experience, that hasn't changed. That's been going on. I mean,
What do you mean?
I'm just counting. I'm thinking of the people that I knew that took their own lives
Mm,
before I had kids, and
that's
my
insane.
kids are close to going off to college.
Yeah.
So a long time ago, this was happening. It was hitting close to home even then. I think the very healthy mental health conversation that this country has had and people like generally are having over the last decade is bringing a lot more of it to light.
Yeah. I would say like the lowest of the lows in my practice actually was a hearing after in front of it was during the pandemic. It was after my car accident. Did you know that her sister had a traumatic brain injury?
No,
And she put this on social media. She was so nice, like, "Oh my gosh, Christine, are you okay?" I mean, messaging me all the time, liking every status, da 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 da. And I had a hearing in front of her. I remember I was so excited to get back into the courtroom. I had pink shoes on that were wicked cute, and I used to be known for my cute shoes in court. I'm in leggings right now. But I went into this hearing in
and
front of
rainbow
her.
socks.
Yeah. Rainbow socks. And she was so horrific to me and my client. I had some audio visual things that I didn't realize from the fluorescent lights that had been under control, but the courthouse was so loud. Actually, after the hearing, I messaged the then chief, Tara Haggerty, said, "Please, can I come get acclimated to the courthouse?" And she was like, "I'll open it up for you anytime. I'll do anything that you need." She was so kind and thoughtful, but was so horrific to my client. She yelled at her. She could tell. We went up to the front, and I was like, "Judge, my head, I'm a little discombobulated." She was so evil. That was like, I went home that day and I was like, my life will never be the same. It was the lowest of the low. And I know how many people, how many other attorneys that she did the same thing to. And I should have said this sooner. I didn't even tell my significant other at the time what a low that was. I mean, it was a really dark time. And I think hearing for other people that have been in front of her, I don't think I'm alone in that.
Oh, there's no way you're alone in
Yeah.
that. I think I've talked to attorneys who were new to practicing in Louisville who had their first hearing in her division and were just didn't know what to say. Just walked out thinking, "Holy shit, this is like what in
Yep.
the world is going on here?"
And she could control it 'cause she was nice as peanut butter pie.
Well, you could control it too. I had a specific strategy for her court. I would set up some situation if the other side was dishonest, which oftentimes are against people that have lied in some aspect of their case, and I would set them up, and it may not be dispositive of any major issue in their case, but I would set them up to where I could catch them in a clear lie. I'd get them to say something. I'd get them to triple down on it. I ask it 5 different ways so they can't say they didn't understand the question. Then I would just show that they lied under oath and remind them that they're under oath. And she would get so mad that sometimes I wouldn't speak again for minutes because she would just tear into them and start asking questions and would get so upset that if you got to go first and that set the tone for the hearing, it didn't matter what your client did at that point.
Yeah. I got to segue onto something else because I'm going to say something I shouldn't.
The funny thing was I got used to her in district court, and I wasn't in district court much, but I practiced with some people and they would cover for me. I'd cover for them. I'd go through and do the district court docket in the morning. And she was just one of the most pleasant people that I ever went in front of on the district court docket. She just handled things efficiently. She went straight through. If you came through and you were efficient and said the right things and you were very polite, oh my gosh, you just got rewarded, which was a shock to me because as a GAL, she was the toughest GAL I'd ever seen. And I enjoyed working with her because she worked her cases. She knew everything about them. She didn't just, pretend to have like a 5-minute interview with someone and then, try to tell a judge what to do. And this was back in the day when the GALs were FOCs and GALs rolled all into one. So
which means they wrote a report.
Yeah, they wrote a report and advised the court. She was not always on my side, but you knew that she had done so much work on every one of those cases, but she was tough. She made everybody cry, men, women, everybody. So when I saw her on the district court bench, and she was so polite, I was just like, this must be more her speech. She seems very happy. So I just thought maybe it would be that way in family court. And very quickly, it was just like, oh.
I mean, the lives that she's ruined or that she's affected negatively, tens of thousands, probably.
I don't know about that. I know that
You want to make a bet?
I've won in front of her at hearings, and I've had clients walk out shaking and just break down crying. And when they got it together again, they said they never wanted to go in there again, and we had just won. Like across the board won.
No,
and we'd never go in front of her again because they were so shaken from
her behavior there's no question it was abusive. I don't even think we have to say allegedly. I mean, she was verbally abusive to most people at most times in court. So we got a question, and the question is, who do you recommend that is not afraid to stand up to these FOCs, GALs, and judges?
Wow. I think it's important for us to state that we aren't in the business of recommending or promoting any business or attorney. I think we can talk generally about what to look for From an attorney, I definitely have a strong personal opinion on who isn't afraid and who would be great in those circumstances. But in this capacity for the Judgmental podcast and for Judgy, I'm not endorsing people and we're not endorsing businesses at the moment. I think,
Yeah, it's also a dangerous, like a slippery
yeah,
slope because what if, I've been out of the practice for a minute. What if it's just not a good fit with that person? Like, I'm uncomfortable just like saying names and being like, hey, I endorse you. But attorneys, this is the note for you. They're asking me who they should hire. Okay.
that's absolutely right. And people are looking for attorneys
Uh huh.
that actually do things. So from advising clients going to see an attorney, simply ask. The most important thing I think when selecting an attorney is that there's just and I won't say chemistry. You don't have to like each other at all. In fact,
No.
a lot of times you need someone that is sort of will hold a mirror up and it can be uncomfortable sometimes. Sometimes you need a little bit of a back and forth in that to get the advice that you need and to
Hmm.
see the bigger picture. But the communication and understanding that there has to be trust and there has to be communication. You have to trust that your attorney, when they tell you this is the strategy, that they are thinking in your best interests and not doing what's expedient for them. You have to know that. And you tend to figure that out pretty quickly when you're speaking with an attorney. It needs to be a good fit. Even if they're very different from you, a different walk of life, you need to have that trust. You need to have similar communication styles because from my experience in the career, most complaints with attorneys are dealing with communication.
100%. Most important thing I would say is you want to have an attorney that will tell you what you don't want to hear. You
Yeah.
have to have an attorney that will tell you something that you don't want to hear. If your attorney says, yes, 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 why don't you just write a six-figure blank check?
No, that's true. I think that's exactly right. But when you're interviewing attorneys, ask them. Ask them how they've stood up to, or if
Yep.
they've dealt with an FOC or a GAL who has not done their job and if they've had to stand up to them. Number one, if the attorney tells you that they've never encountered that situation before, then they've either never practiced and actually practiced in family law or they're not telling you the truth. Number two, not just asking them how they've handled it, ask for examples because attorneys will be able to say, look, I ran into this. Here's what I had to do.
Mm-hmm.
If they've taken active steps to remedy the situation or to maybe get the person removed or to do some extra discovery to make sure that the facts of the case came out, even if the court appointed person was not looking for them, then you're probably dealing with someone who knows how to handle it and will protect your rights.
Yeah, and I would say when you're going to, and I'm working on putting something together, like a little template for what you should take to your attorney, but you need to write down all your questions. Lawyers, it's a power imbalance between a lawyer and a client, Avi, and we have a really good ability to control the conversation compared to everyone else, I would say, right?
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know,
that's what we're paid to do in court.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And
So,
so we can get you off topic even if we don't necessarily mean to.
yeah,
Like it's like you'll leave and you'll be like, I had 7 questions I didn't ask or I didn't see this scenario. I would really like
be direct.
yeah, and shop around. I mean, you're not going to go spend $10,000 without driving, test driving a couple cars. Not that a car's 10,000, but I mean
But
down
if you
payment.
find one that's obviously a good fit,
Yeah.
and you want to move forward, I mean, you generally should know it when it's correct. It's strange to say, but
It's
I
like a
can
love.
feel I like to say I got very good with when I'm consulted with clients, you just knew that, oh yeah, that's going to work.
Yep,
And that person will be hiring me. And the other piece of advice is just be very direct. Attorneys appreciate it.
we
It
do.
feels intimidating going and speaking with an attorney, I understand, or any professional. Like if I go, there's so many people that I used to be intimidated to go speak with because it's someone that has expertise that's outside of my wheelhouse and they're the expert. But
Mhm.
just be direct. The attorneys appreciate it.
Yep.
I loved when people would come in and grill me and ask me questions. It showed number one, they were thinking, they knew what they were looking for, they knew what was important to them.
And I knew what
And
was important to
yeah,
them.
and I could answer it. And I
Yeah.
could tell them if they were off, if they were asking me something that was irrelevant, I would say, I'll answer that, but I think you're asking the wrong questions.
Yep.
But those conversations were so refreshing. It just extremely direct.
Yep.
If you come in and they have a baby face, ask them how many times they've been to court.
Yeah.
Ask those things. Attorneys are, you know, we're big kids.
Well, yeah, yeah, yeah.
We can handle
Handle
it.
it.
Yeah, we can completely handle it. And if we can't, then you don't want that person representing you.
Yeah, I mean, and just to say, like, just because you have a baby face, I mean, when I started my practice, I was 29, and I probably, at 29, had represented more people in court. Now, not family court, to be fair, at the time, but then a lot of litigators too. So don't, sometimes the young ones that are ready to go, also, generally speaking, I think anyone that worked at the public defender's
Sure.
office is a good hire,
We
good lawyer.
we hired them as a firm
Yeah,
because they've been in the courtroom more than anybody.
yeah,
I say that about the baby face because I ran into that a ton,
yeah.
and I got asked that
You
question a
do look
lot.
young.
And at first, I was a little offended, and
Uh-huh.
I just thought, "Oh, someday my hair will be gray, and I won't get those questions anymore." But then I began to really appreciate it because attorneys spend their time advocating for a client. They basically are selling the case to the court,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's a jury, whether it's the judge. By asking those questions, you give me a chance to articulate things that I know in my head but don't necessarily think about. And
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
and by selling myself and telling you why I'm a good fit for this case, it makes me a better fit for the case.
Yep, 100%. So why do judges not follow KRS statutes and face no scrutiny? So broad, but I think it goes to the fact that judges don't face any scrutiny really ever at all, and that's what we're trying to change.
Yeah, from a lawyer in practice, their point of view, the scrutiny is the Court of Appeals.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
don't follow a statute. It That's what the Court of Appeals is there for.
Mhm.
And I will say through a lot of my career, I always had the feeling the Court of Appeals just didn't worry too much with family court cases, that so many things in family
I
court
agree.
are discretionary that you would take things up that were not discretionary. Clearly, a rule wasn't followed or a law wasn't followed, and they would just act like it's they didn't seem that interested in it. Boy, that has shifted. And the Court of Appeals now looks for those violations. I am very happy to see that they are publishing cases that are representative of things that happen routinely in the court.
We got a question, and we've gotten some hate. Question for attorneys to hold judges accountable who are attorneys belonging to the same bar. Emoji like this, like, no way.
I can definitely see how someone might feel that way, but what do they think about attorneys going after other attorneys? That happens all the time as well. Yeah, it's one big bar. We've all been through the same training. I just, I don't know.
And I get this so much, and I think it maybe is new to you because I can tell a little bit
Yeah.
from your reaction that you're shocked that anyone would think that we're literally two attorneys that aren't practicing right now because we couldn't take it anymore. And we've dedicated basically our livelihood to holding judges accountable. And people think that it's like one big club and it's smoke and mirrors. And I'll say, I think the reason for that is a lot of the whole GALFOC court appointed practice where everybody just sees like everybody's out to get me. We're one club.
Well, one of the things I hated most in my practice was when I would be told by someone who was appointed on a case or worked on a docket of some sort, regularly worked in front of one judge as a parent's attorney, GAL. I understand what you're saying, but that's just how we do it here.
Hmm.
Meaning, forget the rules, forget the law. We sort of have a system worked out. You better play along.
And we get happy hour after we're done.
And that does happen
Hmm.
all the time. So to a certain extent, there are clubs, but I can tell you that was frustrating to the majority of the attorneys that I knew, to the point of people were very angry about it, and people don't choose to look the other way, and people fight it. I have a lot of colleagues that are filing appeals and fighting that very sentiment and that environment over in the court, and
And I think
sometimes to their own detriment, being able to go back in that division.
and I just think that the avenue wasn't there. Like, I know I tried the avenues that I thought I was supposed to go. I told other judges what happened. I told the Judicial Conduct Commission what happened, and then nothing came from it. And so I do think attorneys in the day to day, it is not encouraged to speak out about this bad behavior, which is why you and I started this. I mean, that's what our intent behind it was just to make everyone aware of what's happening, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I reached a stage in my career where what I was doing to try to help people and help families
Hmm.
was just being undermined by what I was seeing. And when considering a shift to do something different, to try something fresh and something different, I tried to take a more direct approach that
Yeah.
might actually help people in the future and can help people avoid some of the trauma and some of the problems that I saw for 20 years litigating in family court.
And I'm all for, like, let us earn, go in skeptical, but give us a chance to show you what it is we're trying to do and try to build. That's what I would say to these people that are like, oh, it's one big club. Just give us a shot. You know
Well,
what I mean?
Lawyers earn a lot of the bad reputation, but
True.
there are plenty of people that are never going to listen to attorneys.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you commenting on it? Why are you listening to it? If you're not going to trust what an attorney says anyway, there's plenty of other videos or cat videos or, hateful things to go look at online.
Cat videos.
You don't have to watch, but give us a shot.
But speaking of, let's go on to our viral clip of the week. And remember, if you want us to analyze one, tag judge_Y on TikTok, judging the judges on Instagram, or anything with me is Kentucky Christine. And we every week are going to look at judges kind of, maybe not judges behaving badly, but I would just say viral judge moments. I think that's the better way to put it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's smart.
So I've gotten 17 text messages since we started this. That shows how excited people are. All right, let's watch.
So when I called,
no, we can't talk at the same time.
Well, I apologize for being late. Excuse me.
Stop. Asia, who?
Outerbridge.
Is she making
And
a
why
sound?
are you so late?
Because I have a paper right here that shows my court started at 1 o'clock. But then when I called, right here, if you can look on this thing right here, it says 1 o'clock.
I don't see
He's not looking at the paper. He's looking at his docket.
No, he doesn't appear to be looking.
Maybe
Like I saw 9 a.m. It looks like I saw 9 a.m.
I had 1 o'clock on one of those papers.
You just showed me a paper, Miss Outerbridge. That
yes,
said
I did. Right. So when I called,
no, we can't talk at the same time.
Well, I apologize for being late. Excuse me.
Stop. Miss
You
Outerbridge,
you asked me a question. I'm just trying to answer it.
I know. Put whatever you're trying to prepare down.
I'm trying to be my daughter.
Get your coat. You gotta put your properly dressed on.
I am properly dressed. I have on a t-shirt. I am properly dressed.
Is that a robe?
It's the problem, sir. I'm not even doing that. You asked me a question. I'm answering. My daughter is sick. I had to keep her home from school. I'm just trying to feed her. That's it.
Understandable, but you're in court.
Miss Outerbridge, I'm sorry that your daughter is sick. But again, you're in court, okay? And we're gonna treat it as such. I asked you.
Okay, I'm properly dressed.
No,
I have
don't talk while I'm talking.
on clothes. I have on clothes. I have on clothes.
Bye, Miss Outerbridge.
I have on clothes.
All right, what do you think?
I think this is a good example of what can go wrong with having Zoom hearings or Zoom court. And
Great.
I know that you are not a fan of Zoom. I absolutely love it. I think it's important and a very hard thing for judges to do to make it still be court when people are standing there in their own environment. I think it's a constant frustration. I know, especially during the pandemic, the kinds of things we would see. I mean, and as attorneys, you're standing there, it's not on your case, you're watching some person pro se do something, or you hear a toilet flush because someone's got their audio on while they're waiting for their case to be called. It was funny, for a little while it was novel and funny, but to me, I agree here that he's telling her, you're in court. This is a court proceeding. I get that she is staying at home with her kid who's sick. That stinks. I've been there. I know how that is. But you're still in a court of law. When you're appearing by Zoom, you are still in a court. You don't talk over the judge.
Well, I mean, it's Zoom too. That's one of the problems, though. It's so hard to read the room because somebody asks you a question, you want to immediately respond.
That was hard to read the room. I think
don't
that
know.
was a
And
very
she-
poor reading of the room.
But she had a picture up, and we don't know what the charge is. So if it's like a traffic ticket compared to, we don't know that. But she says, I have something that says I have to be there at 1. And he's like, well, I got something that says I have to be here at 9, which y'all,
We know happens all the time.
I mean, literally happens hundreds of times a day, probably at least in Kentucky.
But I don't know what actually happened there. If she was told to be there at 1 o'clock, yeah, I would see that happen all the time. And that's going to happen when you have a court that processes tens of thousands of cases. if she's in a large location, especially.
Yeah.
But I'm just, commenting on the interaction there. I just can't imagine if I'm on the bench and I'm constantly dealing with people that are in a bathrobe making a sandwich and talking over with me, and
Well, she's
I'm
trying to explain why she's late, though, because he's like, "Why are you late?" And she's like, "I got 1 o'clock, and I've got a piece of paper that says 1." And he's like, "No, no, no, I've got 9." And so
well, I
you're
agree.
on the wrong foot right there.
Yeah,
Also, okay,
but it didn't help that the camera was showing you making a sandwich. I
for your
mean,
sick daughter,
understand that, but I mean,
I'm not asking for. I agree, it's not a perfect way to.
it's not a
I wouldn't
perfect.
advise do it.
I think I think it would be disrespectful to someone that wasn't a judge. If you're on a Zoom meeting with somebody, or you start off by saying, "I'm so sorry that I'm having to do that." I mean, we've all had that.
Yeah.
I've had to attend a motion hour or a hearing and start it from my car because I was racing from another court. Or
Yeah.
I had one time I got rear-ended and I had a hearing coming up and I had to send someone from the office over to cover for me, but I had to log in from my car while I was waiting for the police to be there to file a report. It happens, but
Yeah.
I usually would start that conversation by saying, "Yeah, I'm sorry, Your Honor. This is what's going on. This is why I'm sitting in my
Oh,
car," whatever.
but let's back up. Like now, if a lawyer were doing that, I would have a very different critique. That is a pro se person. And I'm not saying what she did was perfect, but also it goes back to judges just not understanding that they work for the general public. And I just don't see the necessity. Like, I don't see being like, oh, dress properly for court, which she did have on a t shirt. I mean, it looked like she had a robe, like, or maybe her kid's blanket thrown over. But I mean, in fairness, what's the judge wearing?
A robe over it so you can't sit.
A robe? I mean, it's just like pick your battles. And to me, it's one of those condensation. Wait, that's air conditioning? The condescending notion that judges have. LOL. That's like my normal Bullitt County educated speak. But I don't necessarily think this judge is like way out of line like the last one we watched by any
This
means.
doesn't bother me, and that's strange to say, and we probably disagree on some of these others. I remember when I first started my practice and was kind of appalled because, I mean, when you go to law school and you do the training, you think it's this great formal process, and you go to your first court appearances, especially on a cattle call docket or in district court, where a lot of the people are pro se and they're sitting there and you realize, oh, that person's wearing pajama pants and like pink bunny slippers. That person is dressed head to toe in like marijuana kind of get up to show up for court. There are things like that it bothered me only in as much as like I felt that I could feel how serious this was. It was very serious to me.
Yeah.
And when a judge would speak out and someone would walk up and they would have a shirt that had no sleeves and they were hanging out of it and like really short, they would walk up and they would make a comment about next time you hear dress appropriately for coming to court. Or
just like the socioeconomic difference between judges. I get both sides of it now, but speaking about marijuana t-shirts, I mean, we got a judge here in Louisville that wears marijuana earrings and post about it on social media. I hear what you're saying. But a funny story about Eastern Kentucky about what to wear to court. There was this one guy that used to come to district court, and I don't know why he was in there all the time. This was Eastern Kentucky. So you'd have like the regulars. Every single time he'd come to court, he would wear the person that ran against the judges campaign t-shirt. Honestly, this judge was so cool and thought it was funny. Like, and it was just like a small town dig, but he never took it out on the litigant. But I digress.
Well, I mean, they could have been, if you were actually friends with the person, they were doing that just for fun at a motion hour. I could see that being funny, but I mean,
and good for them. And at least that judge was like, okay, you didn't vote for me, but I'm not going to scream and yell at you. You know what I mean?
But I mean, in all honesty, if we're saying that these judges, especially the ones that we've talked about mostly on this podcast, are dealing with things that are so serious to people, you got to expect people to take it seriously as well. You can't expect it just to be the judges that take it seriously if nobody else. If you are in outward appearances not taking it serious yourself, I don't know that you have much to complain about. That's just sort of how I feel about it.
I think I'm a top-down person. I think we all get, we all learn from managers, and I have a higher expectation of a pro se litigant than I do a person wearing the black robe. But agree to disagree on this one.
No. I agree with that. But I think that to the extent that it gets tolerated and, a judge doesn't say something about it, then I think what we tolerate, we end up endorsing.
I hear you.
From a judge, pick your battles. I get that, but
That's my jam with this
I
one.
would have been
Pick your
frustrated
battles.
too, and you know that while it happens all the time, and that woman probably had something that said 9 a.m. and we know, I mean, 1 p.m. and was supposed to be there at 9 a.m. because I've seen that happen. It's happened on cases that I've had as an attorney. It gets screwed up. That does happen, but you also know that judge has been sitting there and has heard so many people probably that day say, "Oh, I was told it was a different time." And
Wah, wah, wah. You have to do the job you signed up for. How many people at McDonald's don't like that job? How many people changing your oil? You know what I'm saying? Blah, blah, blah.
I'm just saying that there's going to be some built-in level of skepticism there because you're probably fed a line of BS by a lot of people about that.
I have the job that I signed up for and paid to, run for office or got appointed by a governor.
Well, you might get a different reaction from a judge if you were appearing professionally.
Boo hoo hoo.
And not making a sandwich and talking over the judge. So.
But anyway, well, that is a great place to segue. Y'all, we are so excited. Like, we really are on cloud 9 today. Our podcast dropped probably like 3 hours ago, and the feedback has been like so overwhelming. Like, honestly, I probably will cry like tears of joy later. And you're excited. I can tell. Like, we are just like amped up. And we like appreciate y'all so much. Send us questions that you have. This is a process. Judge-y.com. Judgy on all of the platforms. If you search, tell us your stories. And if you are in the public and you like this, seriously, they think that they can control you with yard signs and public action committees. They're wrong. Okay. Like, share, send info.
We need some justice. My life is fine, justice.